Alright, hello everyone. Today we'll be doing a new type of video. This is part of a new series, or mini-series potentially, I don't know, where we collect a load of items in Minecraft. Today's video we're going to be collecting all the different types of dyes, as well as the colour blocks as well. So for red dye, you can find them in 4 different ways, the first one being beetroot. So you can find beetroot in a lot of chests that spawn around the world in different structures, but also in villages as well. The villagers also, have forms of beetroot. So then we also have poppies as well, which spawn in plains, sunflower plains, meadows, and flower forests. Also in Java Edition, they spawn in a whole host of other biomes as well. We also have the red tulip, which spawns in plains, sunflower plains, flower forests as well. And we also have rose bushes, which generate in forest, flower forests, birch forests, old growth birch forests, and dark forest biomes as well. And all these 4 methods give you 1 red dye in return when you craft them into dye, except the rose bush, which gives you 2 dye. So then we have the second primary colour, which is yellow dye. So we have dandelions, which basically generate in every single biome, and then we also have sunflowers, which only generate in sunflower plains. And dandelions give 1 yellow dye, whilst sunflowers give 2 yellow dye. The next colour is green, or cactus green, which can only be found by cactuses, which only spawn in desert and mesa biomes. Now for this one, you actually need to smelt it rather than crafting it, and when you smelt it, you then get the dye. The next dye is blue dye, and this can be gotten through cornflowers, which can spawn in plains, sunflower plains, flower forests, and meadow biomes. Or you can get it through 𝗏𝗏𝗁𝗁𝗁, which spawns around about level 0, or Y level 0, up to Y64 and down to -64. And then once you get the 𝗏𝗏𝗁𝗁𝗁, you can just craft it into blue dye. So the next dye is the white dye, which can be gotten through the lily of the valley, which can be found in forest, birch forest, flower forest, old growth birch forest, and dark forests. They can also be crafted using bones as well. So obviously if you use kill a skeleton, you can also use the bones of the skeleton to then craft it into white dye. So the next dye is the black dye. You can get this from the wither rose, which in order to actually get the wither rose, you need a mob to be killed by the wither. So it's very hard to actually do this. So likelihood is you won't be using this method. But another method is by killing squids. So you can actually set up a squid farm and get black dye pretty easy that way. But squids drop ink sacs, and then you can craft them ink sacs into black dye. And the last primary colour is the brown dye, which can be gotten through cocoa beans, which spawn in jungle biomes. So you basically take the cocoa beans and you can turn them into brown dye, just as simple as that. Now, before we get into the secondary colours, which we're going to do now, there are actually a lot of ways to get these colours straight out, which I'm going to show you as we go along with these, but there are secondary ways to get them by combining colours. So you could just use, for example, the red and yellow dye for orange dye, or use the other 2 methods that I'm going to show you. So the first method is with orange tulips, which once again, these generate in plains, sunflower plains, and flower forests. You can also get orange dye through torch flowers, which you can get by getting a sniffer, which is gotten from ocean ruins, suspicious sand, where if you use a brush on the suspicious sand, you can potentially get a sniffer egg. Then when you hatch the sniffer, it'll then sniff around and then potentially get you a torch flower that when you grow it, it'll give you a torch flower that you can plant. And that plant will give you orange dye. And the last method, of course, is just by combining red and yellow dye. Personally, this is probably the easiest method, because if you just make a dye farm for all of the other dyes, you can just craft all the others. But I'm still going to go over all the other methods, of course, once again, just to make this a very easy guide for you guys. So the next one is lime dye. So the first one is sea pickles. So these generate in warm oceans. And all you need to do is, just like the same as cactus, is smelt them down in a furnace. Or alternatively, the preferred method is to combine green and white dye in a crafting table. So now we have cyan dye. So the first one is by getting a pitcher plant. This is the exact same method as the torch flower, using sniffers, and that'll get you cyan dye. Or alternatively, you can use green and blue dye to craft into cyan dye. So the next dye is light blue dye. This is gotten through Blue Orchid, which only spawns in swamp biomes, and that'll give you blue dye, light blue dye that way. Or the preferred method, once again, by combining blue and white dye in a crafting bench. And the next dye is pink dye. This has got a lot of methods to get it. So the first one is pink petals, probably the easiest. These spawn in cherry groves, which are pretty cool. Gives you 4 dye right there per petal patch. The next one is obviously tulips, which can be found in plains, sunflower plains, and flower forests as well. And the last one is peonies, which can be found in forest, flower forest, birch forest, old growth, birch forest, and dark forest biomes. And you can also craft them with red and white dye as well. Now for purple dye, there's only one method to get this, and this is by red and blue dye combined in a crafting bench. That's the only way to get it. There's no other way. And same for grey dye. With black and white dye, you can make grey dye. Now I want to pause the video here. There's actually 2 more flowers that have been released in a beta version of Minecraft. There's an open eye blossom, which gives you orange dye, and a closed eye blossom, which gives you grey dye. So I just want to mention that right here, as there are actually 2 other methods that might become useful in the future, unless they get changed. So we've got 2 more dyes now, just light grey and magenta. These are the tertiary colours. Now light grey dye can be gotten through azure bluettes, oxide daisies, which can both be found in the plains biome, sunflower plains, flower forests, and meadows. And you can also get them through white tulips, which can be found in plains, sunflower plains, and flower forests. Alternatively, you can craft the light grey dye with black and 2 white dye in a crafting bench, just straight up like that. Or you can craft it via 1 grey dye and 1 white dye, and you can craft it in a crafting table like that. So magenta dye can be gotten through alliums, which generate in flower forests and meadow biomes, as well as lilacs that generate in forest, flower forest, birch forest, old growth birch forest, and dark forest biomes. Alternatively, we have 3 different crafting recipes: 1 white dye, 2 red dye, and a blue dye can craft it into magenta dye. Or you can do pink dye, red dye, and blue dye straight into magenta dye once again. Or you can do purple and pink dye to craft it into magenta dye once again. So yeah, we've reached the part of the video where we now go over the different types of blocks that you can use these dyes to create. So the first one here is wool. So to get wool, you basically want to take some shears and find a sheep and shear it. Now what you can do with this wool is you can of course combine it with some dye to then craft whatever colour wool you want. Or alternatively, you can make carpets with it as well. The next set of blocks is concrete blocks and concrete powder blocks. So first of all, to make concrete, we need to make concrete powder. To do that, we need 4 bits of sand, 4 bits of gravel, and the dye of our choosing. So I'm going to do this out of purple dye. I'm going to do all this out of purple dye, to be honest. So just like that, with that recipe, we have made purple concrete powder. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our pickaxe, and we're going to put the bit of concrete powder next to some water. And as you can see, it changes it into purple concrete. Because it essentially makes it wet and solidifies it. And of course that'll go for every single colour. Next up is terracotta and glazed terracotta, which all look really cool. So in order to get this, you basically want to go to a bit of clay. You'll obviously get some clay little blobs right here. So you can craft that back into a clay block. And then what you want to do is you want to put that clay block into a furnace. Now once it's done smelting, you will get a block of just plain terracotta. This has not been dyed yet, so we are going to dye it now. So by combining 8 terracotta and 1 bit of purple dye, I've just made 8 purple terracotta. Now what I can do is I can take just 1 bit of purple terracotta that I've got right here, just set up for myself, and I can actually smelt this in a furnace, and what that's going to do is it's going to make glazed terracotta. So next up we have glass, and obviously glass panes too. So to get started on this, you need to get some sand, and you want to go into a furnace once again and smelt that sand down. Now, just the same as terracotta, you want to take 8 of these glass blocks and combine it with a dye. So I'm obviously going to do, once again, purple dye. I've got a weird obsession with purple. And I'm once again going to get 8 purple glass that I can use to craft stained glass panes, as you can see by that recipe right there. So we're nearly done with this video, guys, but I want to show you the rest of this stuff as well. So we have bundles, shulker boxes, beds, and some other stuff as well we're going to go over. So we're going to go over all these things as well. So to make a bundle, you need to get a bit of leather and string to make a bundle, and just like always, combine that with a bit of dye, and you can customize the color of your bundle. Now, next up is a shulker box, which is gotten by killing shulkers in the end, so it's a very late game item. But when you get a shulker box, you can then combine it once again with a dye to get a coloured shulker box. And the last one we have here is a bed, but this one's a little bit different, as you actually need the colour that you want to make the bed in the recipe to start with. So if I want to make a purple bed, I want to take any type of wood plank and obviously the colour of bed that I want to make. Now we also have candles and banners here as well, as these are other coloured items as well. Now why I've separated these is because these items you cannot change the colour after you've crafted them. The beds, the bundles, and the shulker boxes you can change the colour afterwards. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to make a candle. So you want to basically combine a bit of string and some honeycomb. And this will just give you a basic candle. And then all you want to do after that is, of course, just combine it with a bit of dye. And you can colour your candle. And next up we have banners, which can be crafted by using a stick and 6 colours of wool. So just like the beds, you have to use the wool straight up in the recipe. So once again, just like that, you can make your purple banner. Now the really cool thing about purple banners as well, or well, banners in general, is you can use them in conjunction with a shield in a crafting recipe to change the colour of your shield. Which is really cool. I forgot to actually showcase this off, but I do actually have the recipe in the top right hand corner there for you. Now the last thing I'm going to show you guys is cauldrons. So you can actually dye cauldron water to then dye your armour, and also horse armour as well, leather armour, which is cool, but you can also combine the dyes. So as you're going to see right here, I'm going to fill this back up. You can see it's going to take a little bit murky because it's actually refilled it back to normal water. And I'm going to combine 2 colours. I'm going to combine orange and magenta to make a really cool, like, reddy pinky colour. That obviously you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So I'm going to make that my leather boots and pants. You can see I've got a very unique colour right there. And that feature only goes for armour and horse armour. The other coloured stuff you cannot do that for. But yeah, that is all of the different coloured dyes, blocks, and items in Minecraft as of right now. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful for you guys to collect all this stuff. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.